I'm so excited to welcome to our show for the first time ever, former colleague, longtime friend of mine, who is now with The Athletic as a senior baseball writer, with MLB Network as a studio analyst, and he's got baseball stories on WatchStadium.com. Jayson Stark, so great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to dive right in because I have a lot I want to ask you. Let's go with the Dodgers first, okay? Because this was one of the stories of last season. Yes, they had a slow April and then took off like a shot. And, of course, ended up hosting the World Series and playing the Astros to a Game 7. But here they are. They're 8 games back in the NL West. What are some of the problems that you can spot with the Dodgers?
Well, you're exactly right. They had a rough time of it last April, too. But this feels different. For one thing, Clayton Kershaw and Alex Wood have already lost as many games as they lost all last season. Kenley Jansen has already blown more saves than he blew all last season. I feel like Justin Turner and Corey Seager are their 2 most important position players. Seager's out for the year. Turner hadn't played yet. This is not going to be easy to make it up this year. And remember, after they had that slow start last year, they had to go 81-24 to get to where they got.
Do you believe the problems are fixable, Jayson?
At some point this month, Justin Turner's coming back. I think he's a really important part of their mix in every way, on and off the field. But he's also coming off, one of those injuries, broken bone in the hand area, where you're not sure whether he can be the same guy. When you look at the National League, I think there's a big group, a big middle class that's fighting for the wild card. But I honestly think the Dodgers are now part of that group, that in order for them to win the division, they've either got to have another stretch of 100 games where they win like 80% of the time, or the Diamondbacks are going to have a ton of injuries and come back to the pack.
Jayson, I like that term, middle class, the middle class of baseball. That's where the sport is kind of thick around the middle. A lot of teams in that area. Let's stay in that same market and talk about Shohei Ohtani and the Angels. How complicated is it for the team to manage his wishes to play every game, whether as a hitter or obviously as a pitcher on the mound, versus their desire to keep him as fresh as possible for the long haul?
You know what makes it hard is there's just no blueprint for this. Nobody's had to do it since Babe Ruth. And I don't think there are a lot of consultants hanging around from the 1919 Red Sox that they can refer to. And they knew what they were getting themselves into, Amy. This was the ground rule. If you're going to get in the game and bid for Shohei Ohtani, the condition you started that with was he was going to do both. It was important to him. It was important to his nation. He's representing his whole nation. And so it part of the selling point that they presented to him was, this is what we're prepared to do. This is how we're prepared to manage it, and we're not going to second guess it. And so they're willing to work with him to where if he comes off an outing where he throws a lot of pitches or he feels sore, instead of giving him 1 day off after that start, they might give him 2. If he has a situation like we saw the other night where he's a position player or DH and he turns his ankle running to first base, they will give him time before he gets back in there. Mm-hmm. It isn't easy. It isn't normal. It isn't anything that we've seen before, but it's just part of the Shohei Ohtani show. And, they signed up for it. I signed up for it. I love every minute of it.
Me too. One of the great stories of this young baseball season. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence, along with Jayson Stark, MLB Network analyst and writer for The Athletic. So pleased to have him on the show for the first time. Jayson, you mentioned the Red Sox. Right now, they're out in front in the American League East, though being hotly pursued by the New York Yankees. One big change for the Sox is Alex Cora. And I've talked to a few people in Boston who tell me the attitude around this team is so different now. It's not a lot of changes in terms of personnel, but where do you see the fingerprints of this brand new manager?
Well, you and I work with Alex at a former stop, and I think we know that he is an incredibly positive person. He connects with people of all sizes, shapes, personalities, and he understands baseball, sees the game at many different levels. And, talking to their people, they feel like he has been a fantastic fit for that group. And it's hard to argue, but that's not really all that's going on there. Rick Porcello is back. David Price is back. He's, in the last couple have not been quite what we saw early, but Eduardo Rodriguez is healthy. Drew Pomerantz is getting healthy. Chris Sale is tremendous. This is a team that has more going on than just a manager who gets along with the troops. But that doesn't hurt. The other part is Mookie Betts looks like he's going to have one of those years that people in New England talk about for like a century. That's also helpful.
Well, that's the Red Sox part of it. The Yankees are in hot pursuit, Jayson. They're now within 2 games of Boston atop the AL East standings, and it's been so much fun, even in this short period in the 2018 season, to see this rivalry renewed in fuego, in force. There's a new manager in New York as well. We understand all the pressure of that market and how much of a baseball appetite there is. But how unique is the challenge for Aaron Boone when you're talking about a group of really young guys who have so much potential?
Do you know that the Yankees have the youngest roster in the American League? That's incredible, huh? They started a team in which nobody was over 30 a week or so ago. And this is going to be a behemoth. This is going to be a team that the league has to deal with for 5, 7, 10 years because that's how young they are and how good they are. I've already predicted they're going to break the all-time record for most home runs in a season. And, up and down their lineup, there are guys with thunder, guys with bat speed, guys you never heard of, Miguel Andujar, who every time he swings the bat, it's an extra base hit. Right, 16 extra base hits already. It's quite a phenomenon to watch this unfold, and there's more coming. Right, this is one of the best systems in the game, and so this is going to be the team to beat in this league for years to come. Other teams can make that case. The Astros can certainly make that case. The Red Sox they're young enough that they're going to be part of this for a long time. The Indians' window hasn't closed yet. It's fun to watch this, but the Yankees are set up to be great for like a decade. It's a scary prospect for the rest of the sport.
Well, that would certainly draw more eyeballs to the sport because people either love or hate the Yankees. We're spending a few minutes with baseball insider Jayson Stark of The Athletic, as well as WatchStadium.com, which is this fabulous platform where you have a chance to sit down and speak with major newsmakers in the game. And recently it was Terry Francona, obviously former Boston manager, now with the Cleveland Indians. He's a lifer, Jayson, and he tells such great stories. What stuck with you from that conversation that you had with Terry?
Yeah, that was one of, we've had 5 of these baseball story shows that have aired on Stadium TV and WatchStadium.com. They're half-hour conversations. It's a great format for guys to tell those stories. And of all of them, the session with Terry Francona might have been my favorite. His dad, Tito Francona, died this spring. And I started out the conversation by letting him tell stories about life with his dad when his dad was playing in the big leagues. And they were such great tales about his dad sending him over to introduce himself to Ted Williams. Dad didn't go with him, right? You go over and you say hi to Ted Williams and see what happens.
Whoa.
Taking him on a road trip at a time when that just wasn't done. His mom took him out and bought him a suit that he had to wear for a week and a half on the road with these big leaguers. He would go out and shag, and they had to, there were no kid-size uniforms. They had to take the smallest guy in the team, and they would, they taped up the sleeves and the pants so he could actually fit into them. And he told all these incredible tales. I just sat there spellbound. And then, he's got so many levels to him. We've known each other a long time. He was actually a neighbor of mine when he managed in Philadelphia and then lived around here for several years, even when he was in Boston. And so, I've known Terry in a way that I don't know everybody in baseball. And so to hear him just kind of wind through his career and compare Cleveland to Boston and winning in Cleveland, winning in Boston, the curses and the droughts in both places, and how he relates to players. He's really a special guy in the game. Love talking to him, love listening to him.
It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio. There are a lot of balls flying out of a lot of stadiums around the league. And last year, Jayson, we saw baseball go over 6,000 home runs. As someone who has watched the sport, covered it for a really long time, positive or not, what's your take on this trend in baseball?
You know what? I'm actually a little worried about this trend. We're at the rate we're going. This year, there are going to be 10,000 fewer balls in play than there were in 2009. I want you to think about that, Amy. 10,000. Just so many strikeouts, so many homers, so many walks that, we're now up to almost 35% of all plate appearances end with a ball that doesn't land in the stadium. And I'm not sure what the solution is. I ask all the time. Nobody knows what it is. There's an approach to hitting, an approach to pitching, and all this information that is conducive to all of this happening. And how do we stop it? How do we slow it? People inside the sport are grasping for those answers, and nobody's found one yet.
So inside Major League Baseball's brain trust, they are worried about it, same way that you are?
Yeah, if you've listened to Rob Manfred talk, he talks about pace of game, but he's also used a phrase that I think is more important, which is pace of action. And, I actually had the Live Sports Bureau compute this. We're now in the neighborhood of 3 minutes and 45 seconds in between every ball in play. And that's just not good for your sport. I really appreciate all the thinking in the sport now. That's the coolest part of what's going on. But I'm not convinced that a lot of the strategy that comes from all the thinking translates into great entertainment. And so you've got these two trends in the sport, and they're leading the sport in down two totally divergent roads. Thinking's good. That is good. Using the thinking is awesome. But if it doesn't lead to great entertainment, then I think your sport has a challenge on its hands. If you'd like to solve it, if you've got any answers, Amy, Rob Manfred would love to hear from you.
I would love to have the commissioner on the show, and then I could offer some suggestions. Jayson, let's talk about Manny Machado. He's in the news the last couple of days. What does it mean when the Orioles say we're still evaluating the situation?
Well, nobody pulls the plug on May 2nd or 3rd. That doesn't make sense. But the Orioles are in a place where if you look at their team and you look at the standings, it's hard to convince yourself. They're going to come from 13 games back of the Red Sox, 11 games back of the Yankees, 9 games back of the Blue Jays. That they're going to pass all those teams. And I feel like they're in a place very similar to where the Phillies were a few years ago, where they had this group. They did a lot of winning with that group. They tried to squeeze every ounce of juice that was in that orange. And I think that's admirable in a lot of ways. It's you kind of want your team to do that when you've got a core group like that. But the danger in it is it means that when you have years like this and you understand it's time to sell, it's time to move into that mode with players like Manny Machado, your return on a player like that when he's only got a few months left on his deal, it's just not going to be what it would have been a year ago, 2 years ago. And I don't think there's going to be a bigger trade chip on this market, and I don't think there's going to be a more important trade chip to any franchise than Manny Machado. It's just hard to see a scenario now where he finishes the year in Baltimore, right?
Man, you're stressing out some Orioles fans, Jayson. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio and my friend Jayson Stark from The Athletic, MLB Network, and WatchStadium.com. Not that far down the road, the Nationals are off to a slow start. How much stress is there about the future relationship with Bryce Harper?
Well, I don't think there's more pressure on any team in baseball than there is on that team to win this year. And when I say win, I mean win the World Series. Dusty Baker won 96 and 97 games, if I remember right, in his 2 years managing that team. Never won a postseason series, and where is he now? So that's the mission. And I think everybody there understands that this is it. This is the last year they've got to win with Bryce Harper. And, they're not off to a good start, but it's certainly not his fault. They're probably missing their three most important offensive players who are not named Bryce Harper. Daniel Murphy hasn't played at all. Adam Eaton was hitting .455 with a .510 on-base percentage when he got hurt, and they haven't really been the same since. And then Anthony Rendon went on the DL. So they've got to get healthy. They've got to get their lineup back. They've got the talent. They've got the pitching. And I think they still wind up winning the division. But as you just said, they've got to win it all, right? That's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah, so much riding on this season. All right, Jayson, I could ask you questions forever, but I don't want to take advantage of your time. You're always so kind. What is one storyline or narrative that we haven't talked about that you are really excited to see unfold this season?
Oh, I think the Braves. I just saw the Braves. And, this is a team that has that 2016 Astros look. Ronald Acuna comes up, and he's just a special talent. There's nothing on the field he can't do. He's the fastest guy in the field. He had a home run in the upper deck. He's an elite defender wherever you put him. It's already clear he's special. And Ozzie Albies is Jose Altuve, only nobody has heard of him. I mean, May 1st, you look up at the league leaders, and who's leading the league in runs, hits, homers, doubles, extra base hits? Ozzie Albies, 22 extra base hits before he even got to May, and he's 21 years old. They've got a chance to really hit the accelerator on their timetable, and it's going to be fun to see where it leads because they've got a lot of potential top-of-the-rotation young starters coming. Exciting.
And we have a summer and the fall, a blank canvas full of endless possibilities. Jayson, it's like old times. It's so good to catch up with you again. You can find Jayson Stark on Twitter at JAYSONST, now a senior baseball writer at The Athletic, in studio at MLB Network, and host of Baseball Stories at WatchStadium.com. Jayson, thank you so much.
Amy, it is always fun. Great to talk to you, too.